What if the thing actually became a customer? How do we make our products and services machine readable? Algorithmic trading is regulated. It is regulated, heavily regulated. They close nearly 70% of their contracts with their more than 2,000 vendors without a human intervening. Interfaces that are generated on demand. There's a human element and a machine element. I'm going to coordinate those to make sure that it works. I think being able to manage ambiguity is going to be utterly critical.
Hey, it's the Product Experience, and I'm Randy Silver. And this week we've got Katja Forbes joining the pod. She's been a design leader for more than 20 years, a guest lecturer at the University of Sydney, and she's now an executive director at Standard Chartered Bank. And she's been thinking about what it means to design for machines instead of for humans. Katja, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
I am fine. It's my absolute pleasure to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Of course. So can you just fill us in? Where in the world are you? What do you do these days? And how did you get into this world in the first place?
Well, where in the world am I? I am on the very sunny, very hot east coast of Singapore. And I've been living in Singapore for about 3.5, nearly 4 years. What am I doing right now? So I'm currently the head of client experience, insights and development at Standard Chartered in the corporate and investment side of things, which means that the clients that I'm doing client experience for are like governments of countries, large multinationals, other banks. So the big end of town rather than, well, hey, Randy, would you like to have a credit card? I don't do that. And how did I get here? Well, that is a long tail. But the short version of the tale is that I was running my own company in Australia and I sold it to another organization. And as I took on that role of regional managing director, did that for about 3 years to make sure that everything was up and functional. I kind of realized that being a managing director of a design consultancy is a sales job. And while, I can sell, it's not really the thing that, it's not my why. Let's put it that way. And then Standard Chartered knocked on the door and said, hey, we think you're an interesting fit for this job that we've got. What do you think? And so, I went through the process and ended up moving here to Singapore to have a Southeast Asian adventure.
Fantastic. And one of the things you're interested in at the moment, and the reason we're talking today, is you did a talk recently about designing for machines. So I'm a little bit, I'm curious, this is a topic that's come up a couple of times in recent conversations with people. So let's start at the beginning. Why is it that, you come from a design background, but now you're looking at why your customers might never experience your UI in the first place? How does this even happen?
I know, even saying that out loud, doesn't it sound like a thing that would break the heart of every designer? Like, what is the point of us anymore? The existential question. So design is a tool and technique that I have in my toolbox, but I think about my world much more holistically as customer experience. And there's loads of different tools that we use to create customer experience, which is the perception of the interaction with our businesses, products, services, brands from the customer's point of view. Now, I read a very interesting Gartner research report, probably back in 2017, I'm going to say, by a clever character called Don Schreibenriff, who has answered or tried to answer the question, thinking about, it started in the Internet of Things, where one of his colleagues asked him, what if the thing actually became a customer? What would that look like? And so Don and some of his colleagues went away and did a lot of thinking and deep intellectual research to try to understand what a world would look like when our customer that is trying to transact with the business is actually not a human. Okay, stick with me here. Would it help you if I gave you a for example?
Yes, please.
Yeah, usually it does. So, for example, a non-human customer, as we see agentic commerce, AI agents, theoretically becoming capable enough to organize our lives and do things on our own behalves. For example, I have a fictitious AI agent. Let's scratch that. Its name is Tyler. And Tyler works on my behalf to optimize my life. Tyler goes and makes sure that my smart fridge buys spinach when I am running out of spinach. Tyler tracks my wearables and senses whether or not, I'm stressed, whether I've done exercise. And then what Tyler does is we'll go and say, book me a Pilates session at the Pilates studio. So Tyler has permission from me as his human owner. God, here's it. We'll come to anthropomorphizing in a minute.
Trouble.
Yes. Let me just get through the example. So Tyler would then be doing all of those activities on my behalf with my permission to transact with those businesses. I'm not that interested in my interaction with Tyler experience design. I feel like there's quite a lot of people looking at that already. But the thing that is not being looked at hard enough, not being questioned enough, not really even being thought about in some scenarios is, as the Pilates studio, am I ready to transact with Tyler? What do I have to do differently about my positioning of my products, my services? How do I allow a machine customer, that agent, to transact with me? Because it's not a human. From the point of view of the grocery store that's selling the spinach, how do I sell to a smart fridge that is being organized by a house agent such as Tyler? So what do I have to do as a grocery store to get ready for that? And that's just in the retail context for this. So does that help with understanding what a machine customer could or, probably is going to start looking like?
It does, but it also sounds a lot like the way we design APIs. I mean, and again, design is an interesting word in this case, because it's a lot about documentation and resilience and things like that. Is that the route we should be thinking about? Is that a good mental model for the type of thing we're doing?
That, especially when I talk to my technical colleagues about this, is the very first question they ask me. They're like, Katja, isn't this just an API? No. Yes, but no. Yes, but no. So this is an API is the way that this customer can connect and speak to our organizations and pass the information backwards and forwards. Absolutely. It's the critical plumbing that we need to enable this in our organizations. But this isn't just plugging together pipes. This is a completely huge shift in customer behavior. How might we create trust between ourselves as a business and the agents that are knocking on the door, acting as customers, going, hey, I want to buy your thing? There's this huge customer trust layer that we have to be putting in there that says, well, these are the things that I need to know about you. Hey, Tyler, who do you actually work for? Who are you representing? What are you allowed to do? Can you please give me any kind of confirmation that you actually are allowed to do this? And who's going to ultimately have liability for the transaction that we're about to do here? And from Tyler's perspective, Tyler wants to know from that business, are you aligned to the values that my human has told me are important to her? Do you have sustainability throughout your entire supply chain? Are you, guilty of modern slavery? All of these kinds of things that as humans, we really wish we had time to check when we bought a product. But now, as we have agents working on our behalf to buy for us, we can ask them to check every single thing. And for the business, they have to go, all right, well, how do we signal that we're compliant? How do we signal we're trustworthy? How do we make our products and services machine readable? How do we make sure that we can get this non-human customer to come back and buy from us again? How do we do loyalty? What if something goes wrong? What if there's a return? How do we handle it if Tyler comes back and says, hey, I want to return this thing? What does that look like? So there's this huge layer of logic and stuff to unpack and figure out that has nothing to do with whether or not it's an API.
So this sounds like something that the larger companies of the world, the Walmarts and things like that, they have the resources to throw at this. They have the ability to throw it,
Oh, yeah.
and they're able to do it. But you started with an example of your stressed and Tyler books a yoga session for you. How is the yoga studio down the road gonna sort this out? Because I guarantee that, with very rare exceptions, they are not thinking about this sort of stuff and running their business day to day.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, Walmart, you're right. Walmart is a great example because they're already on this. So Walmart is an example of an organization that is really future focused. They are creating their own agents to shop for their customers internally, and they're also preparing for their customers' agents. And this isn't a fiction. Visa already offers intelligent commerce, which is a bot that can go and shop for you within your parameters. MasterCard has Agent Pay. They're already in market today. They're not massively prevalent, but they're in market today. So, that studio needs to be able to do the very basics. And one action that a small business could take is to get all of their website content, throw it into something like ChatGPT or Claude or whatever your favorite LLM is, and say, evaluate all of this content and then generate for me a machine readable JSON file or even just a .txt file that I can put at the root of my website that explains all of my value proposition in machine readable language. And that's easy. That's easy to do. You're already surfacing your products above the rest because they're easy for a machine customer to consume. They're easy for an LLM to find. They're easy for that, that agent to understand your value proposition without a human having to explain it to it. So that's one thing that you could start doing just as a smaller business.
This is essentially a feature that should be available from whoever your website builder or host is, of help me to become open to the world of agentic commerce. Is that what you're saying?
That is absolutely 100% what any organization that is thinking they're going to be offering, these kinds of services out to customers, they must offer this as a part of their value proposition. Because if they cannot get their heads around this and how to enable agentic commerce for their clients, they will be irrelevant and out of business in, I would say, 2 years.
And I'm sorry, so what kind of business are we talking about for this? Is this the yoga studio around the corner? Is this the greengrocer down the road? Or is the ones that still provide a human experience that you're doing on the way home or things like that? Or are you talking specifically about chains and things that are at scale?
I think I was talking about anybody who says, I'm going to build you a website so that people can come and do commerce with you. If they don't have that as a feature in their offering, then, we're in trouble as an organization. In terms of who needs to get ahead of this, anybody in retail needs to get ahead of this. Anybody in retail must be thinking about this because it is going to become, I reckon we've probably got a 5-year runway before agents are actually able to do what we imagine they might be able to do. Mm-hmm. And people will just use their agent to do their shopping. I mean, who wants to go to the supermarket? Who wants to shop? Who wants to do any of that? But then, the flip side of that is having those conversations from a customer experience perspective. Again, why this is not an API, where we look at our businesses and go, out of what we offer and what we do, what are the things that we want to retain and still offer as a really rich human customer experience? I think there's some conversations like that in luxury brands where they want to create and curate very rich human customer experiences. But then on the flip side, the luxury brand is also going to have to be ready for the fact that they have high demand products that everybody is trying to buy, and people are going to get their agents to try and grab that, fancy bag. And
supply
they have
chain
to deal
and retail and all of that. Yeah.
And they have to deal with 1 million agents swarming all over their website trying to make that purchase. And, it is a very interesting, challenging, complex customer experience problem and product problem.
So this also sounds a bit like algorithmic trading from a certain perspective. Is that really where it's going as well? Because that's kind of terrifying for some kinds of at least on the retail side, for some kinds of transactions. Your procurement team is going to get beaten up by anybody bigger than you.
So, all right, before we get too stressed about algorithmic trading being the basis for how this works, algorithmic trading is regulated. It is regulated, heavily regulated, because it's within the financial services ecosystem. And we do see we have seen, the flash crashes in algorithmic trading and things go wrong, certainly. And what the problem is there is when it goes wrong at scale and at speed because of the ability of the algorithm to make those trades and interpret the results of its trades and then trade either again in one direction or another. But it is regulated. So there is amount of, audit and safety and things like that. I think we should be more worried about the fact that this kind of commerce currently there's nothing telling us how it should operate. And yes, I think there's some serious ethical, safety, really hard conversations, regulatory conversations that need to be had as to how do we do this responsibly? How do we do this safely? How do we do this in a way that it doesn't just result in, my AI agent saying, oh, Katja, I noticed that while you're asleep, I made 47 purchases for you because I evaluated the performance of some of the outfits that you have and they weren't performing very well in particular scenarios. And so what I've done is your closet is at 94% capacity. So I've organized for you to, have about 23% of the clothes. I've identified candidates for, donating and recycling. And I'm there going, why do I have 17 dresses in the same in 17 different colors? And they're like, oh, well, because the blue one works for business and the red one works for social situations. And then I end up in a situation where I've got all of this stuff that I'm going to throw to the magical place called away, which ultimately ends up on a beach in Ghana somewhere. And I don't want this kind of future because we either set and forget our bots to go and do things and buy things, or we don't do this responsibly and sensibly. And we just end up with like a really crappy consumerist future where we don't have good societal outcomes. We end up with bad societal outcomes. So yeah, there's a lot.
Okay. There's a lot of ethics that are going to come into this. And the problem with all this is when you start to doing algorithms, you get scale and all that. And that always is a challenge. Let's move
when it goes wrong big. Yeah, it goes wrong big fast and it goes wrong huge size.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about what we can do in the short term, and then we'll come back to some ethical stuff later on. So what is the actual interface we're designing for? And it's a new acronym that you've got. It's not UX anymore. It's AX. What's that?
Well, that's agent experience. So I talk about the landscape of machine customers because it's a bit broader than agent experience. So an agent is just one type of machine customer, operating on behalf of its human, filtering what the human gets to see or buys and operates within its parameters and permissions. There's quite a lot of other machine customers that I've identified. One is like an autonomous buyer. It's a Tesla. It buys its own tires and books its own services. It's an autonomous buying machine customer. There's the co-buyer where it works with the human. You take it to buy your Ferrari and take your AI with you to fact check the salesperson. Then there's the platform level machine, which is the procurement type customer. And that one's in market today. Walmart, your earlier example, they use AI procurement. So they close nearly 70% of their contracts with their more than 2,000 vendors without a human intervening. And 3/4 of those vendors prefer to negotiate with the AI. So this is already in market today. And when I talk about agent experience or machine customer experience, What I'm talking about is the very intentional crafting of the way that they can interact with our businesses so that it's easy for them to do that and they can achieve the tasks that they come to our businesses to do. And that's about making things machine readable, having really good APIs. This is absolutely part of it. But also having done that very important logical thinking about how do we work with this new type of customer? What do we do differently? What do we do the same? What can we use from our customer experience toolkit that still holds true? What is no good to us anymore because it operates on psychological or emotional principles and we can't really use it to craft experience for either the agents or other types of machine customers.
Let's dig into the basics that people should know about. And you've identified 4 specific areas that people should be aware of as
there's 5. There's 5. I just didn't tell you about the 5th one because it starts to get really gnarly.
Okay.
But I can.
Well, let's start with the 4th and then the 4, and then let's go into the 5th. So first one is signal clarity. What do you mean by that? Signal
clarity. This is how we make our businesses machine readable. That is the absolute foundation of this whole practice. How are you articulating your value proposition? How are you talking about your products? Do you have semantic information about your products? Are you using basic, industry standard schemas, things like that? How fresh is the data that you are showcasing out into the world? So this is about just making it accessible, I guess, for a machine customer, for an agent to find it, understand it, decide if it wants to consume it or take it back to its human to tell their human about it, to put it in the consideration set. So those are the things that we're talking about in signal clarity. It really is what it says on the tin. Signaling what your business does, has, and offers clearly in a way that a machine customer can understand.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. I got that one. What about reputation via reliability?
So this is where we're talking about trust. So as I was saying earlier, there's a lot of trust mechanics that we have to analyze and figure out how they work in this context. One of the ways that because trust is kind of a uniquely human thing. It's actually something that's a neurochemical, reaction to us being able to believe that something is going to act in our best interests, and therefore we trust it. Now, a machine customer, an AI agent, a Tesla car, or any kind, cannot trust as such. But what we try to do is give it a whole lot of signals that say that we are reliable as a business for the thing that they are looking for or the thing that they want to buy. So, for example, compliance signals. So if we as businesses create machine-readable compliance signals that show how great our approaches are to, environment, social, and governance, our ESG types of, compliance opportunities. So showcasing our sustainability all the way through our supply chain. Because believe me, the procurement AI is going to interrogate your supply chain from front to back because it has the capacity and the ability to parse all of those kinds of data variables. So we want to signal that we are also, our uptime is we're available 99.9% of the time. So you can know that we are a reliable provider of the service that we are offering to you. So it's kind of finding all of those quantifiable signals that a machine customer would go, okay, well, yes, they tick that box. Yes, they tick that box. Yes, they tick that box. Okay, I can trust them. I can see they're a reliable vendor and I can trust them. So that's how reputation provides reliability.
Are we going down the road of rating every transaction and saying, yes, it did what it said it was on the tin. It should that the good showed up at the right time. They're the right quality, things like that. Are we just going to be reputation scores at a certain point?
Not solely, because there is a place. So I've just been writing about this because I'm writing a book on this subject. Everybody, I'm writing a book. I'm gonna write down everything that I know. There is a place for us to ask the human, how did it go? And what we want to do, the difference in the, how satisfied or dissatisfied are you with that transaction, which is what we normally do when we're doing a human to business post-transaction check. We need to understand what was the factor in terms of the accountability for that transaction that resulted in that score. Was it the way that Tyler interpreted your intent as a human and did whatever it did about it? Was it how the platform that Tyler interacted with delivered on the ultimate outcome? Say, for example, if you're booking a hotel, was it actually the hotel service delivery that was the thing that made you satisfied or dissatisfied with the outcome? So there's a bunch of different places where like satisfaction and customer experience can feed back as to what went right and what went wrong. And depending on where the accountability was, is where you go, all right, well, that's the intervention I'm going to make. If it was the hotel that let them down, well, there's service delivery interventions that they can make. If it was Tyler that misunderstood, well, then there's some tweaking that you need to do on how you instruct Tyler. If it was the platform that got it wrong, well, then we need to figure out like what was the misunderstanding and that interpretation that went wrong. Did it not understand Tyler's instruction? Did it not create a friction-free agent experience for Tyler to execute his command? Yeah, so there's all of
You're
this.
You're going to have to give it a
way.
name that's less associated with people if you want to continue to get the pronouns right.
Yeah, I know. Or just try harder, Katja.
So it sounds like quantitative and qualitative measures are still going to be really important, but it's also sounds like the type of research we do, it's not going to be just with the human as the end customer, but we're going to have to do research with the agents as well. Is that the case?
Okay, so this is where it gets really quite sticky. Okay, so if a business can understand how an agent has been instructed by its human, it is able to better deliver on the request. However, we now have the question, is the conversation between me and Tyler, where I instruct Tyler about what I want and what's important to me, is that private? Because if I say, I want you to go and book me a hotel for the kids, and I don't want to spend too much money on it. There's two quite personal inferences that come out of that. Number one, I've talked about my family construct, which I may or may not want people to know about. And number two, I've indicated perhaps there's some financial constraints in my life that I might also not want the business to know about. So it's very gray, that area of, is that conversation, is that instruction, is that set of intentions private because it's between me and my agent? Or does a business have the right to interrogate Tyler on how it was instructed so it can better provide a service?
And there's the real challenge of how good are we at instructing Tyler, because the difference between what I mean, what I say, and what Tyler hears and interprets are going to be very, very different.
Absolutely. The communication of intent, and I think that's the next pillar that I have there, that intent translation. The communication of that intent is going to be hugely challenging because as human beings, we're poor at communicating necessarily all the time exactly what we're thinking. And the challenge with sort of even with the LLMs that we've got, even ChatGPT, Claude, they behave very human-like. And so we have a tendency to ascribe them with more capability of understanding human intentions than they actually have. They are very good at appearing credible. However, a lot of the time, they're actually not capable. We expect them to hallucinate. We expect them to lie to us. I mean, stuff that we would never accept from a human interaction. But yeah, this is the thing. It's like, how do we make sure that we are understanding the intent when we interact with the machine customer, and we're understanding that intent correctly, which again is why this isn't just a bunch of APIs.
So that goes into I think the next one very neatly. So what is the agent experience engagement architecture? That sounds complicated.
It's not. It is, but it isn't. Okay. All right. So agents, Teslas, smart fridges, all of those things that can act, AI procurement, all of them that can act in a machine customer context, they need a specific architecture to support the type of interactions that they're going to have with us. Now, for a human who wants to buy a Taylor Swift ticket, they will sit on the website and they will click the button and click the button and click the button and click the button and click the button until they can get into the queue. And their ability to click the button is limited by our physical speed, that we can use our little fingers to do things. And therefore, our existing websites, our existing engagement architectures are fine because they're there to serve humans at the human level of capacity. What we want to be able to do is, should a million Tylers turn up at the Taylor Swift website trying to buy the ticket for their human, that architecture has to be able to handle that kind of hugely autonomous traffic that is able to come and continue to hit it and hit it and hit it and hit it until it can get through. I think this is at the stage where they're quite dumb. So as they get smarter and smarter, there will be more ways that they will be trying to interact with our channels to undertake commerce. Yeah, so there's an example that I give as well. So say you are a small jeans manufacturer and you have like 30 pairs of selvage jeans that you got from Tokyo and you're selling those. Now, Kim Kardashian has managed to get herself a pair of those jeans and has gotten on Instagram and with the jeans on and said, these are the most incredible jeans that I ever wore in my whole life. They're amazing. You need to get these jeans. Everybody's AI agents of the millions of followers that she has all go off and hit this little manufacturer. She thinks that she's done this person a favor. Probably not. So, the engagement architectures need to have rate limiting so we can stop that swarm of agents coming and trying to buy the thing from us. So that's what I mean when I'm talking about the right kind of engagement architecture to handle machine customer traffic and machine customer interactions. That again, like this is actually APIs. We do need APIs here. That's part of the engagement architecture.
So it just sounds like it's an experience architecture as much as an engagement. Okay, got it.
Yeah, we could call it both things. To be fair, the labels that I've given everything on that were a starter for 10, and I'll probably have to change them as we learn more things because honestly, I don't know what I don't know.
Okay, and you said there's a mysterious fifth force that you didn't put in your talk, and now I'm curious. What can you tell us about that?
Well, this one it's unformed. It's unformed, but let me give you a sneak peek. So I think that there is going to be a scenario where we have AI agents that don't serve a human particularly. They don't necessarily serve an organization, but they facilitate a transaction like an intermediary broker.
A concierge or something like that, okay?
Yeah, because when I tell Tyler, go book me a hotel, Tyler doesn't have the economy of scale and relationships with all those hotel vendors. Tyler's probably not going to be able to get me the best deal by hitting 50 different hotels itself, right? But there will be the opportunity for a broker in that space that does have those relationships, that has already got all of that information.
Almost like a travel agent?
Oh, Liz, but an AI version. Yes, it is. It's the broker for the transaction, but it's not necessarily too fussed about getting a deal for the hotel or getting dealing for me. It's about facilitating the best possible transaction. So I think there's something in there that's not quite formed, where we have these brokers, and how do we create the engagement models or the experience architectures for that kind of really curious entity, where it's not entirely clear who it's serving.
Okay, this is mind-blowing stuff. So let's talk
I'm breaking
about
your brain. I'm so sorry. Are you okay?
Well, yes, but let's talk about practical things. So I wanted to ask about what organizations can do, what we can do as hiring managers, what we can do as people trying to develop our skills. So starting at the top level, at the org level, every time something like this happens, the money has to come from somewhere. So we're going to need some new tools and developing in new areas. What should we stop or not invest as much in, and what should we be investing in at the org level?
Oh, controversial. Okay. Controversial. I think, and this isn't going to be a hard stop, okay? I think that we will stop investing in static screen designs and customer journeys that are determined. This is what we push the customer through in order for them to achieve whatever it is that they want to achieve. Because there's already some industry activity around generative user interfaces for humans, where the human explains to the platform, this is what I want to do, and the interface generates itself to allow the human to do that. So that's not static. And basically what happens is you get an interface that is personalized not only to you, but also to what you're trying to do. So I think that is a near future where we have not autonomously, but interfaces that are generated on demand, which means that the whole, I'm going to map out all of the possible screen flows and things that happen in my prototype. We don't need that anymore, which is, this is a hard one. This is a really hard one.
Debugging this is going to be really interesting.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think that we need to, from an organizational perspective, help people get comfortable with what are the possibilities with the tools as they evolve. And I think a lot of organizations, particularly in regulated spaces, like for us, particularly, we are heavily regulated, and appropriately so, because that is our license to do business. And so we need to make sure that we are careful and intentional with any use of, emerging technology, artificial intelligence. And so we'll probably take a really cautious approach. But there's a lot of organizations out there that are just going, give us everything. Let's take it. And organizations that are making big bets and figuring out that it was the wrong bet, like Klarna, and we're going to get rid of all 700 of our customer service people because we don't need that anymore. We'll get a chatbot to do it. AI can do it.
Oops.
And then they went and hired them all back. So there's some big bets that are going to go wrong. Okay, so what was the next part of the question?
Next one is, so as a hiring manager, as somebody what should I be hiring for? What skills am I and kind of people am I going to need that I might not have in my organization today?
I think there's a whole lot of really interesting, speaking from a customer experience and product type of lens, a whole bunch of really interesting roles that are going to evolve. So I think that we will see trust analyst roles. So people who can figure out that really gnarly trust layer and how that has to work and how we make it work for the business and for the customers, for the humans, for the machine customer intermediaries, for all of those factors. I think that there's a role which is the human machine hybrid coordinator. So when we have experiences with our products, that have a human aspect to them, like a relationship component that we need to have, but also a machine component that we have to have. For example, in procurement, so big contract that you're trying to land from a procurement perspective, the humans on the equation, they want to have a relationship conversation with your business to understand, who you are, how you operate, what type of people you are, can we trust you, can we work with you? But there is also their AI procurement platform that is interrogating every other aspect of your business that is important to them to make this decision. And so I think there's a coordination job there of someone who is able to go, all right, I can see in this interaction, this customer experience we're curating, there's a human element and a machine element. I'm going to coordinate those to make sure that it works. So there's those kinds of, quite futuristic skill sets that we will be looking for in this space.
So for the people listening to this right now, you're talking about trust, you're talking about these hybrid coordinator roles. What type of skills would you say we should start developing to keep us relevant and able to thrive in this world?
I think being able to manage ambiguity is going to be utterly critical, and being able to make the best possible decisions that we can when we don't have all the facts, because we don't know what we don't know. We don't know necessarily exactly what's coming. And we can't be paralyzed by the fact that this is all new, that this is all challenging and difficult. So I think some of those abilities to navigate and manage the ambiguity is going to be a critical skill set. There's all of the technical skill sets, but to be fair, I think those you can learn those. You can learn all of those things. You can ask large language models, hey, how does that work? And it will explain it to you. I think that it's the unique human understanding of what's going to make this work like it's got grease on the rails. And that's going to be our unique human abilities to understand trust, to understand like what values are important, because we're going to be looking at having these agents operate representing our values. So, how do we make sure that we're providing experiences and products that are values matched for the good societal outcomes? And that would be the third place that I think is really important to get really literate, is how to ethically navigate this. And if there's one thing that this group of people take away from this conversation and go and look up, it's the consequence scanning technique, which is where you look at the lovely idea that you've come up with, and then you ask the question, what is the worst possible outcome that could happen if we are successful with this idea? To start to explore the unintended negative consequences of the thing that you think is fabulous.
We did an episode on that ages ago with the wonderful Roshi Proven, and she talked about doing it as a retrospective of the Black Mirror test. So get your team together and say, given this feature, given this idea, what is the Black Mirror episode that could be written about it?
Gorgeous. I love that framing. Yes, that is perfect.
Katja, this has been a fantastic conversation. I can't wait to read the book. And I know from having done this myself, the best way of getting someone to manifest their book is by asking them about it constantly, so that they feel like they have to get it done. So tell us what's it about? When is it coming? Where should we follow you to learn more?
Absolutely. So the book is about machine customers, but particularly about machine customer experience, because my expertise is customer experience. So I'm going to, play where I know. And so the book is, I've done 12 chapters to first draft now, of probably around 14 or 15. So I'm nearly got all the sand in the sandpit. I'm ready to make castles out of it now and start polishing that book. The date that I'm hoping to have it in people's hands is in November this year. If I can really squeeze my publisher, I'll see if I can get it out in October. I have got, I'm working out loud on this on LinkedIn, so people can follow me there or ask to connect with me there. Very happy to talk with people on LinkedIn. And I do post regularly just the snippets of ideas that I've got to test them out and see how they land. And you're very welcome to, I can provide you with the link to the form that says you can give me your email address, and I will keep you updated as to when pre-sale is available, and hopefully get a whole bunch of people really ready for this very exciting paradigm shift in customer experience.
And we'll have all those links in the show notes underneath the video on YouTube, all of those places. So definitely check that out and connect with Katja. Thank you so much for joining us today.
You are so welcome. Thank you very much for letting me talk about my favorite futuristic subject.
The Product Experience hosts are me, Lily Smith, host by night and Chief Product Officer by day.
And me, Randy Silver, also host by night. And I spend my days working with product and leadership teams, helping their teams to do amazing work.
Luran Pratt is our producer, and Luke Smith is our editor.
And our theme music is from product community legend Arnie Kittler's band, POW. Thanks to them for letting us use their track.